So I wanted to do a quick tutorial on how to do some data analysis in a LibreOffice spreadsheet. LibreOffice is, in my opinion, the best alternative to Microsoft Office. It's a completely free program, and to download it, all you have to do is just go to LibreOffice.org and follow the instructions on the website, and you can download it on your computer, and it is also compatible with both Windows and Mac. So the reason I wanted to bring up uh, this alternative is because not everybody has access to the full downloadable version of Excel because, of course, it's a paid program. And something that this has over a spreadsheet like Google Sheets or the online version of Excel is that since this is a downloadable software, you don't always have to be online. You don't always have to have a stable internet connection in order to use it. And you also don't have to deal with any of the cloud saves like Google Sheets and the online version of Excel both use. And it also has a lot more features, and in my opinion, it's just a lot easier and simpler to use than something like Google Sheets. So after you've installed LibreOffice and open it up, this is the first screen that you should see. As you can see over here on the left side, you have all the different things that something like Microsoft Office has. You have your word processor, spreadsheet, presentation. So you can use this for other things as well, not just this lab. Um, but for our purposes, we're typically going to be using a spreadsheet. So if you click this button, Calc spreadsheet, it'll just open up a blank spreadsheet. Um, or if you have a CSV file, like I have for this tutorial, you can just go up, click Open File. You can find wherever you saved your CSV file. So this one is my CSV file, so just click Open. And then this window will pop up to configure your import. You don't really need to change much here, but the only part you want to pay special attention to is your separator options. You want to make sure, since your file is a CSV file, um, you to make sure that the only thing checked here is comma. Otherwise, it won't look correct when you import it. And it gives you a nice preview down here, so you can see whether or not the data is going to look correct once it's imported into the spreadsheet. So now once you're done here, you just click OK, and it will open up a spreadsheet with your CSV file successfully imported. So with this being an Excel alternative, um, most of the basic functionality is identical as you would expect. So all the typical functions like highlighting your cells, entering your formulas, starting out with an equal sign, and you have all your functions. So that's all that stuff is all the same. So I'm not going to be going into a full tutorial of how to do everything in LibreOffice because for the most part it's very similar to spreadsheet programs that you've used in the past. However, the chart creation process is a bit different. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. Just going to be using some sample data, some simple position versus time data to create a chart and create a trend line and get our equation just like we've done in previous labs. So before we make a chart, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give a name to each one of our runs in a separate cell. And you'll see why I do this a little bit later when we make the chart. Um, so basically you have to define the names in a cell. You can't just type it in, otherwise it won't work. So you'll see why we do that later. but you can put your names anywhere if you want to on the spreadsheet, just as long as they're each in their own cell. So to create a chart, all you have to do is highlight the data just like you would in Excel. We can hold Control to highlight this section, and then go up here to our toolbar and click on Insert Chart, and then it will bring up a chart wizard. So here we have all of our different kinds of charts. So typically for our purposes in lab, we usually choose scatter chart. And I'm just going to use points only. Then we click next. So in this section, it's just choosing a data range, so we've already done that. So we're just click next again. Now this section is where we can change our data ranges. So we can add and remove our different data series. And we'll be coming back to this page a lot in the process of making our graph. So this first section here under name, so this is where we can name our range, and this is why I added the name before I created the chart over here. So to change name, you just make sure the name is selected. You just click this button here next to range for name, and then you can select your name. And now you can see it has changed the name to run one, and it's also changed it in the chart legend over here. So we can see that it has plotted the data in the wrong way. So it's put time on the y-axis and position on the x-axis because of the way that our data is laid out here. So we don't want that. So in order to fix that, we just have to go over here, select our x values, click this button, and we'll select time as our x-axis. We'll click our y values, and then we'll select our position for our y-axis. And now it looks much better now. It's plotted as it should be. So now that it's plotted correctly, we can go ahead and click next in the chart wizard. And now you can enter your title for the graph as a whole. So I'll just call it example. You can label your x-axis with units as always, and your y-axis. And you can see that it has added them appropriately over on the chart. So now we've made a full graph, so now we can just click finish. And we can go here and you can click and drag to make it bigger. So now with this chart, if there's anything that you want to change about it, for example, the legend, and that goes for anything on the chart, you can simply just right click it and you can format it. And then formatting windows come up and you can change pretty much anything you could ever need to change about all the different components of your graph. So if you want to change your axis, same thing, you can click format your axis, and this is where you can change your scale and size and how it looks and everything like that. And you also have all those different options up here as well. But I always think it's easier to just hover over the thing that you want to change and just simply right click it. So now I want to analyze this graph a little bit. So say I want to add a trend line to this linear section of the graph here and add our equation and our squared value. So to do that, you need to add a subset to this graph. And that subset will cover the area or the data points of the graph that you want to analyze. So to add a subset, you can just hover over any blank space in the chart, right click, go to our data ranges, and then go over to data series tab. And now we're back at our data series at where we can add and remove our data series like we were in the chart wizard. So to add a subset, we just click add, and we select our X values. So So since I want to analyze this section, we can see that section is goes from about 1 second to 9 seconds. So we'll highlight that here, 1 second to 9 seconds. And then we'll do the same thing for our Y values. So we'll select the same range for our position values, from 1 second to 9 seconds. So now we've added the subset, and we can just click OK. And you'll see that you can't see it here, which means that you've done it correctly. So those data points are just behind the original data set. So in order to fix that, you just simply hover over any of your data points, right click on them. You can see that it has highlighted all of the data points. You go down to Arrangement and you select Bring Forward. So now it's brought your subset and it's put it on top of your original data set. So now you can see your subset. So before we add a trend line to our subset, we forgot to name the subset over here. So I just named it a generic or default name here over in the legend. So to fix that, I'll just come over here and we'll type a name for it in a cell. So I'll just call it subset. And here you can see that I'm now no longer in the chart editing mode. So to go back to editing your chart, you just double click on your chart and now we're back into the edit chart mode. So now we'll fix that name. We'll go back to our data series and we'll just select range for name and we'll select our name and we'll click OK and now it's properly named. So now we're ready to add a trend line to our subset. So to do that, you again hover over your subset, right click and make sure that it highlights only the subset and then you just click insert trend line. And you have all your different regression types. You can name it. You can extrapolate forward and backward, however much you need for your specific situation. You can check these boxes to show your equation and your R squared value. And you just click OK. And it has made a equation for you. And you can move it around. And it usually gives a lot of decimal places. So typically we won't want this many decimal places. So just like with anything else on the chart, to edit your equation, you just right click on it, format your trendline equation, and you can go over to numbers, and here's where you can change your number of decimal places to however many you need for your situation. Click OK, and now it looks a lot nicer. And also, it doesn't give any indication about which trend line goes with which equation. So if you're going to have multiple trend lines, it'd be a good idea to format it in some way, like changing the color to kind of match your trend line, so that it's clear that this equation goes with this trend line if you're going to have multiple trend lines. So there's other ways to do it, but just make sure that you're formatted in a way that is clear, that a certain equation goes with a certain trend line. So that's it. So that's how you make a trend line in LibreOffice. And this is just some basic analysis using this platform. And one more thing, if you wanted to add like another run like we have here in this case, you just do it exactly the same way as you add the subset. So you would just right click, go to back to your data series tab, you add another one, select your name. So we made a name for room 2. Then we select our X values, time again, and our Y values for run 2. And click OK. And now you can see that it has added the second run to the same graph. Right, so that's it. So that's everything I wanted to cover. It's just a quick walkthrough about how to do some basic data analysis using LibreOffice. If you decide to use this program and you get confused anywhere or you want to know more about it, please feel free to ask us and we can help you out with that. And I hope that this software makes it easier for those of you that don't always have access to the full version of Excel.